Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal Ramanan. I'm Rich Griffin. And a week from now, we're recording on Thursday morning. A week from now, spring training will be here. So we'll talk about our own memories of spring training next week. But when that happens, that summer, or not summer, but spring is close, and it gets my blood boiling, gets my heart pumping. I don't know about you, but we'll talk about that next week. The New Year's resolution. We're 37 days in, and I've made one and I've kept it. How about you? Do you have a New Year's resolution that you've
Well,
managed to keep up?
well, like I said, normally I don't do any, but this year I decided I was going to, kind of make an extra effort to get my act together and be in the best shape as best a shape I can at my, weathered years. And so I would say I've maintained. So I've got to, obviously, with the business here. I've literally just moved in the past 2 days and trying to get organized. So I've picked up a lot of boxes, which has helped in my physical health. But I'm probably just in a maintained stage till I get settled, and then it's go time for the physical exercise more than normal. Obviously, I enjoy the gym, but I'm gonna ramp it up. So
Good.
I'm it's kind of just steady as she goes right now for me. How
Your
about you?
your your spring training corresponds to Blue Jays spring training and Major League spring training. You
Well,
can
see,
start ramping it up next Thursday.
I don't want to be like all the other January gym goers. I'll let them die off, and then I'll get to
Right. And
that's,
trust me, most of them have.
yes,
Well,
yes.
my
I'll
New
give them a
Year's
little longer.
resolution, my New Year's resolution is one that I've never tried before. I've tried all sorts of variants and variations of it, but I think I showed you my list. I write down on my notes on my iPhone, I write down everything I eat. I don't put a portion. I don't put portion size. I don't even look up calories. I just write it down. It's a chronicle of whatever you call that.
Yeah.
Probably
So whether
idiocy.
it's two chips or the
So
whole bag, we never know.
right, you never know. It just says, give me, like, for instance, give me one date in January, and I'll tell you what I ate.
Okay, January 23rd.
January
My
23rd.
my mother and my grandson's birthday.
January 23rd. Griff's Food in 25. That's the January 23rd. Medium Italian soup, plain yogurt,
Whoa.
Ritz crackers with a cheese ball. That's
The
it.
whole the whole day?
Yeah, the whole day.
Are you sure you didn't miss an entry or two?
Yeah, I did not miss an entry. It must have been football on or something that day. But the thing is,
Do
I've
you
gone from
count beverages?
no. When I tried counting beer one spring, and the thing with beer is after like seven or eight or nine, you lose track. But if you're eating food, the seventh, eighth, or ninth thing you eat, you don't lose track. So makes it
That's
easy.
right.
But
Well, I mean,
I've gone from 190 pounds to 183.8.
oh, so it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Congratulations. It's
So I
working.
don't know why, except that when I look at the list, if it seems repetitive or too many snack items, I just don't eat it.
Well, that's the point, right?
But that is the point. That's the
Keeps
only,
you accountable.
it
Well,
keeps me
I'm
accountable.
excited to see how this journey continues.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
6'1", 184 is about the perfect height
That's
and weight
that's
for a
almost
major league
playing weight.
starting pitcher.
I
Yeah.
was going to say that's playing weight.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's in
is
the
there a
old days
goal in mind?
before workouts and gym work and stuff. 6'1", 180 when I was starting used to be ideal weight for a
Well,
pitcher.
I was a big man back
Yeah.
in the day. So is there a goal in mind or we hit it hard?
I think when I hit 180, I'm going to start eating more chips and snacks and stuff.
That's usually how it works.
Right.
I'm excited
Anyway,
for you.
I need an update on your St. Catharines team, the summer league team. How is that going? And I'm still waiting on tenterhooks for a name of a team, and that'll be exciting. And the logoed merchandise and stuff.
Yes.
Give
Yes.
us an update on that.
Well, as I just mentioned, I've officially moved my rear end back to the Niagara region 2 days ago, and I'm grinding through that. So we're here ready to go full bore on this thing and be 5 minutes from the ballpark. So that's exciting. As far as all the announcements, we pushed the announcement back slightly for a couple of reasons. One, just for key individuals that are going to attend our press conference. So it's officially February 19th, not changing. Um, so we'll unveil the logo. We'll probably announce. I can tell you we've got 5 players signed, sealed, and delivered. I'll announce those at that time. Uh, we are making progress. It's a daily grind. But as far as announcements, on the 19th, we'll have a logo for you and some player announcements and get this thing kind of rolling for real so that people can uh, start considering buying some tickets for this summer. So it's
So you
coming.
were you relying on word of mouth just among players, among potential players to spread the word because next year, after one season under your belt, it should be easier to recruit players at that point.
Well, I wouldn't say word of mouth from the players, but yes, that is a big thing. But I'm using all the connections I have in the game that have developed over the years. So there's a lot of going through a lot of different elite teams, and they have access to players. And to be honest with you, I kind of know most of who the players are just from being around myself. So and there's ways to access them. There's some good nowadays some good websites that can tell you where all the Canadian guys are just to keep yourself up to
Yeah.
date on where they're playing these days. That really helps, but mostly through my connections. And yeah, word of mouth helps. Word of mouth does help. So, right, year two will be a lot different than year one. As we move forward, you just kind of build your connections, and people know you exist more as you move along. So, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
so we'll stay on top of that every week on Exit Philosophy. But now it's time. We're going to move this up because it's such a big moment in sports in 2025. Super Bowl coming up on
Oh,
Sunday.
right.
Um, we're going to have this podcast released on all platforms by then, by Saturday night or Sunday morning. So people will be able to use your pick and my pick. And if they're opposite, they're going to be screwed. But the Chiefs are favored. It's in New Orleans, of course. Chiefs favored by 1.5. And I think the over under is 48.5 or something. But we're going to stick with the point spread. Who do you like? Eagles are the home team and in New Orleans, and the Chiefs, of course, trying for their third straight.
I like the Eagles here. I just think they're, well, hey, who knows? But I like the Eagles. I think they're a better football team. I think the Chiefs can be susceptible to the run game a little bit. So if the Eagles are smart, I think they're really going to go at them in a run game and wear them down and just kind of grind out a nice little victory here. I'm not sure the Chiefs, it's not right to say, but I don't think they have the firepower to come back if they get behind. So I'm looking for the Eagles to get on top and then force them into the passing game a little more. I mean, obviously they can do it. I mean, force them to go to players maybe that, you know, get the secondary guys involved. And I'm not sure if I think the Eagles can hold off. Unlike the Bills, I think the Eagles are equipped to shut that down. So I'm going to take the Eagles. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I got the Eagles also. I think the Eagles are um, so they're getting 1.5. They're a better team than they were 2 years ago when they lost to the Chiefs, and I feel the Chiefs are a worse team than they were 2 years ago when they beat the
Sure.
Eagles. So that with that logic, it's difficult to take the Chiefs in that situation. Um, I think that, of course, everyone will tell you that a battle of turnovers is the key, but I do believe that if the Eagles can stay away from holding penalties, and they got a great offensive line. They don't need to resort to that, but you never know about these referees with the Chiefs involved. As a
Correct.
Bills fan, you can relate to that.
Correct. They should be there.
But I just believe that if because you know that the Eagles are going to go for a lot of fourth downs if it's fourth and short because they got that tush push, which might be outlawed by next year. I don't know how you're going to outlaw it unless you give a penalty for pushing from behind, but which it used to be the case. You
Yeah,
didn't
that's
used to be
that's
able to push
that's
them.
actually what you can't outlaw the play. You can outlaw that.
Yeah,
That's
and also
changes a lot.
I find that it it used to be that whistles went a lot more quickly when there's a pile up and nobody's moving. But now they give that extra time and the Eagles big guys come in and just push the pile. That's it. But momentum had stopped much earlier in that play,
Right. Right.
and yet they allow it to keep going on. In any case, that's not related to this Sunday's game. I think that if they stay away from, if they stay ahead of the chains, ahead of the sticks, that they'll be going on a lot of fourth downs and short. And if first down is Barkley chewing up 3, 4, 5 yards, maybe more, they can control the clock. They can control the ball. They
I
can
agree.
game. So
We got an exit philosophy special here. The
yeah,
Eagles.
and don't scoff, you anyone listening, don't scoff, because Mal for the season when we started picking this up was 25-21 against the spread and now has the Eagles, and Griff was 27-19 and we've got the Eagles. So like
You're
just
just making people money, Griff.
yeah,
You're making people
that's
money.
what we're here for. All right, we'll get to baseball now.
Is
And
that so they can spend it on Griff the pitch? That's the idea.
correct. Yeah, be
I
a
mean, what's a little consideration for the host here, you
That's right.
know?
I mean, for quality baseball reporting, you go to Exit Philosophy on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Griff's the Pitch for columns, conversations, and Exit Philosophy also posted there. So thanks
Right.
for the plug, Mal. I appreciate it.
Right.
So we're Thursday morning. On Wednesday evening, it was announced that Pete Alonso was re-signing to play first base for the New York Mets.
You don't say.
There seemed to be a lot of surprise in the Twitterverse. Um, 2 years, 54 million, which is not chump change, but the length of the contract might be, well, not might be. He was looking for a lot longer than that. But clearly, what does that indicate that he was willing to take the 2 years and 54 from Steve Cohen and the Mets?
Well, as we mentioned in previous shows, it just felt all along that's they were going to figure out a way to get it done. Alonso wanted to be there, and I think the Mets wanted him as well, but obviously it had to be on a certain terms. So this is the same deal that Boris got guys last year, Montgomery and Snell. It's a little bit of a bridge deal to get him to next year because that market has kind of dried up a little bit, and it allows him obviously to get paid handsome salary this year and next year if he chooses, and then re-enter the market. And you have a good year, as we've seen, he'll cash in. So it just, it was inevitable he was going to end up back there. You see all this nonsense that's on Twitter and reports he signed two weeks ago or agreed to a deal, and they were I just think it's all nonsense. I think we've been pretty steadfast here in where the Blue Jays are at and with their budget, and kind of felt like they were finished. And I thought they got pretty creative to get Scherzer under contract. And I think this is who this team is going to be. I don't think there's a lot of room for a Pete Alonso on that roster. Even if there was, it didn't make a lot of sense with Vladdy there this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Blue Jays fan base gets bamboozled into thinking that every free agent out there should be coming to the Blue Jays. And there are rumors everywhere, as clickbait everywhere, that they have an offer on the table. They have an offer on the table. And like for Alonso, for the reasons that you have said all along about team payroll not being as flexible as people would hope it was, I mean, what would Rogers' view be on adding Alonso for 3 or 4 years if that had been the case? I mean, that's a lot of money. They're already over last year's opening day payroll. What's your view on that?
Well, well, we know the payroll's not flexible, and it'll just go back to what you said about everybody being bamboozled into believing they're in on everybody. You're correct. Now, the team doesn't do themselves any favors when you're in on Otani and apparently Soto. It gives the impression that you are in on everybody. So, like even legit baseball insiders would think that you're in on the most expensive contracts in the game, even
Yeah,
though
that's
that's
very
not the
true.
case. It's not the case. So, as we've said all along, you've got to think they've maxed out their payroll just because of A, comments from Mark Shapiro anyways, and just a historic view of what our knowledge is of how those payrolls work with Rogers and a publicly traded company. It's just not go sign whoever you think you can need to sign. There's a direct, you know, there's a hard budget there that they're given that's been decided. So you could be creative to a point, but you got to make sure you get in under that budget at some point. And it's apparent as we've discussed that they're at that max. They're there. Anything else to me is going to become via the trade market or minor signings. Minor signings. That's just my belief, and I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think this is an indicator that the market for Alonso wasn't what people think it was, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and as far as the Blue Jays and Alonso are concerned, to me, if Alonso had signed with the Jays, that creates a problem defensively for the team because neither guy wants to be a full-time DH, Alonso or Vlad Guerrero Jr. Vlad is a better defensive first baseman, but you might have to play Alonso at first and move Vlad over to third, which weakens your defense also there. Yeah, a lot. And we'll get into the Blue Jays rotation on another topic further down, but this rotation is going to rely on the defense, the superior defense that it looks like the Blue Jays will be able to provide.
Yeah, and
So
they do.
that's gonna increase the inning count for the starting pitchers, and run prevention has been the mantra of this front office, clearly. And finally, they've got a situation with a second baseman who's a platinum glover and a center fielder who's a platinum glover when he comes back. So I don't think they would really want to weaken that defense by having Alonso at first and moving Vlad over to third base.
Right. Agreed.
There was other news. Fay Vincent, the commissioner of baseball, who replaced Bart Giamatti. Giamatti passed away. They were both scholars. Giamatti and Fay Vincent were cut from the same cloth. They were both scholars, university guys, very well educated and very smart. And that's the problem with being baseball commissioner. You don't have to be that smart. We can see that with Rob Manfred. But
And the previous guy.
right. And the previous guy, yeah, the car salesman. But
Right.
I think that Major League Baseball was disgraceful in the statement that they put out regarding Fay Vincent's passing. Fay Vincent, I mean, you have an impression about Fay Vincent being the last of the guys who was in favor of balance, of the
Well,
good of the game type thing.
well, and that's the idea. That's kind of the supposed to be the mantra of the commissioner, right? Do what's in the best interest of baseball, as they say. And I don't think you can argue that Fay Vincent was the last one to actually act in that manner. What would be best for baseball? And I think the ridiculousness. I mean, it's you know, you can look at our political scene too to see where we've gone and how corporations take over our daily lives. And Manford and Sea League, well, especially Manford, are all about just what's best for the ownership group and what's best for short-term profits, I think. And the funny thing is when you got a guy like Fay Vincent in there who's looking out for the best interests of baseball, I think in the long run, everybody wins anyways. You know what I mean? So it's a shame that it feels combative, and it always has since Manfred's been along. Whether he's it's combative towards the players and the union, or just the fan base, or other professional leagues. I've been in meetings with him, and right away you just get an uncomfortable feeling about what the direction of baseball is. And I think we've seen the game actually not be as enjoyable and be hurt by the kind of direction they've taken. That's my impression. But I mean,
Yeah,
Fay Vincent felt like the last one who didn't think like that, if you know what I
yeah.
mean.
He was the assistant commissioner with Bart Giamatti, and then Giamatti passed away just before the '89 World
Right.
Series. And Fay Vincent took over. And all that Major League Baseball could say, or all Rob Manfred's office could say about Fay Vincent and his passing, was that he was the 1989 Earthquake World Series, he was able to get the game going again, game three, after a 9-day break or 10-day break, and smoothly. And then he says that he presided over expansion to Denver and Miami. That's it. That's all.
Right.
To me, my memories, and I was with the Expos and in the game during those years, is that Fay Vincent, as you pointed out, wanted the game to continue and wanted to represent not only the owners, but the players. And that's why he got drummed out, and Bud Selig replaced him. And then that led to the strike in 94 and the cancellation of the World Series, which Fay Vincent was obviously not going to be in favor of. He was going to try and find every way he could to have that settled and move forward with the game and not have to cancel a World Series.
Right.
I mean, even World War I and World War II never canceled a World Series, but Bud Selig did. And to ignore that part of Fay Vincent and the fact that from 89 when he took over to 93 when he was drummed out of office, is to ignore an important part of Major League history and the important part of Fay Vincent as a commissioner and as a man.
I agree.
Let's see now. Oh, yeah. Peter Ueberroth. I was thinking about this in the week leading up to this. And my favorite highlight of Peter Ueberroth was at a Major League Marketing softball game in Orlando in 1987. And Ueberroth was the commissioner. And he came out to preside over, it was AL East against AL West and NL East and NL West. So he played for the NL East team, which was my team. He played shortstop and I played third base. And what stands out to me is that I won the MVP for that game. I think I hit a triple and did the Chili Davis flap down, rounding the bases. But I would go out and play defense with a Bud Light can in my hand and put it on the grass and then make the play. And the commissioner was standing. The game has really changed.
So you won the MVP for bringing the Bud Light out, not for any.
I think that was as much anything. It was only one hit. So,
yeah. How was Mr. Ueberroth on the hot corner?
That was my position. My natural position was third base, and he played shortstop. It was like when A-Rod pushed Cal out to short for that All-Star game in Seattle. He didn't really deserve to be there, but I let him play there, so it's all good.
Would there be any video of this anywhere?
I have a VHS. But I don't have a player.
Well, we could get one. I mean, I need to see Rich Griffin at the height of his athletic abilities.
The triple off the fence into left center field.
Really?
It's the flap down, boom.
Oh, yeah. I could just see the jersey flapping in the wind a la Gilbert Perreault as you rounded the bag.
All right. Here, I need your opinion on this other one here. The umpire who was suspended from baseball, Pat Hoberg, suspended from baseball. And there are some, probably he feels there are extenuating circumstances, but it's kind of hard to make an argument. What are your thoughts? He had a gambling account. There's no proof that he bet on baseball, but his partner, his friend, who was a professional poker gambler, did bet on 8 baseball games from that account. And so there's guilt by association, or maybe he is. I don't know. What do you think?
So he bet on 8 baseball games that he was involved in?
Oh, that's right. There was a lot of baseball games, but 8 that he was involved in.
Right. So,
but he didn't necessarily put those bets in.
Well, he did because they're under his account. So I mean, if it's his name's on the account, then.
But so was his partner.
Right. So those 2 gentlemen placed those wagers on those games. How'd those bets do?
Yeah, they all lost.
So he's not very good at it.
To me, it's not. To me, it would be easier.
It is a good defense, at least. I lost every bet.
To me, it's the NBA and the NFL are much easier to control the outcome. It would seem to me, as an official, as a referee,
well, the NBA particularly.
Yeah. Yeah, especially
I
overs and unders.
look, we're in an environment where gambling is obviously acceptable, as it should be, by the way. There's nothing wrong with it. However, you have to ensure the integrity of your game at all costs, and anybody participating in those games cannot be involved in any way. So I don't know how this is any different than Pete Rose. You literally made those wagers. There's no way to suggest you didn't. Your name's on the account. According to the rules of baseball, you should be banned for life. I just like, and I bet you he won't be. I bet you he won't be.
Yeah,
And
there was a little addendum that he would be eligible for reinstatement in 2026. He could apply. So that's what you're suggesting, that if he does, there's a chance.
well, but why would they even have that? Why is it there? And like you do your investigation, you find the results, and you make your decision. I mean, obviously, anything can be revisited for new information, for a change in philosophy from the league as how they approach gambling. Until something changes, do you not enforce hard and fast rules that are posted in every clubhouse that if you gamble on the sport, you're banned for life? And I just don't know how. I mean, obviously not part of the investigation, but your name with one other person is on accounts that gambled on baseball and 8 games you were involved in. I don't like Pete Rose obviously lost a lot of bets. He was betting on his team, and that's not the point. He could influence the result of
Yeah.
those wagers. He
And it,
directly had access to that.
the inside info on Pete Rose that I heard is that when he was betting on his team that he was managing, he was player manager with the Reds. When he was betting on his team, uh, it would always be that the Reds win. And if there was only one guy, Bill Gullickson, when Gullickson was at the tail end of his career, when Gully was pitching for the Reds,
He
Pete
wouldn't
just
bet.
wouldn't bet the game. It's almost like betting against your team,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not.
It's throwaway day. But yes, correct.
Speaking,
So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Yep.
speaking of Bill Gullickson and starting pitchers, and I wrote a column on Wednesday, posted, and you read it in
I did
terms of
read it.
the Blue Jays considering going to a six-man rotation now that they've signed Max Scherzer. Um, there's all sorts of reasons that are outlined. If you go to griffsthepitch.com, you can read the column. But let's discuss that and the pros and cons maybe of the Blue Jays six-man rotation, which would be, I'll go in order of who I think should be the pecking order. Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, Bowden Francis, and Yariel Rodriguez. That's six. What are some of the questions that a fan or that you would have in terms of why this makes sense? Or do you have an opinion on if it does?
Well, I think the idea is intriguing, and I think I encourage everybody to go read your article because it lays it out pretty good. I think there's a lot of valid reasons why, and you lay them out, but obviously, I think there be some opposition to it. It's like I said, I recall when teams went to a 5-man. It used to be a day when it was a 4-man rotation, and you completed every game you started, by the way, back then, pretty much. So the number one question, and I think you've encountered this already, is, well, how can you have a 6-man rotation when you can't even find 5 competent starters on most teams? You know what I mean? So what's the idea there? Where are we going to get the sixth guy from?
Yeah, it's not a balanced six man as outlined. It's using off days and the sixth starter to create a situation where your main starters, 1 to 4 in this case, because Bowden Francis to me would be on a pitch limit or an innings limit because he's still a young, relatively young starting pitcher in the major leagues.
Just hasn't
Um,
thrown enough innings. Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
not balanced. You don't go 1 through 6 and then the off day and then 1 through 6 again. You use the off days, and you use the sixth starter judiciously. And your top 4 guys, for instance, Barrios or Gosman and Barrios would make 19 starts. And I plotted it through the All-Star
yeah. For
game
the first
because
half of
it's
the
a
year.
4-game, 4-day break, and you can reset at that point. You can reset your entire rotation. There
Sure
may
you
be
can.
injuries happening in the meantime. And
Right.
that's another thing. If there's an injury, if there's like a tweak or a hamstring or whatever, in a 5-man rotation, when everybody's just on schedule to pitch on their fifth day, if there's an unexpected interruption in your rotation, you have to go to Buffalo. You have to fly somebody in, and he's not clearly not a major league starter if he's in Buffalo right then.
Right.
Or you have to go to a bullpen day, which disrupts your bullpen for the next 3 days after that start. So if you have a 6-man rotation, you always have that sixth guy, and this would be Yariel Rodriguez,
Right.
available to fill in if somebody goes down on the day before or the day of a scheduled start. There's always one or two pitchers who can be moved up to pitch on regular rest. And I think that that's a key. Another key is that pitching on 5 days rest instead of 4 days rest. Blue Jays pitchers in 2024 averaged 6 1/3 innings per start,
Which
and
is not bad.
pitching on 4 days rest, they average 5 1/3 innings per start. So you're getting an extra inning because you don't think that you can allow a guy to go 110, 15 pitches because he's got an extra day of rest built in. And I think that's probably the main reason why that statistic worked out the way it did. But it may also be that with the extra day rest, he was strong enough to go that extra inning. But either way, it works out well for the Blue Jays and their pitching staff because think about it. Would you rather have a sixth starter who can get 4+ outs when he's not starting? And Wyrod would only do 8 starts in the 97 games prior to the All-Star break. So he'd be available plenty of times to pitch long relief when it doesn't interfere with one of his 8 starts. Would you rather have that guy on as your eighth reliever or an eighth reliever who the manager doesn't trust, like a Tommy Nance or a Ryan Burr, when you're in a close game, you never see these guys. Like down the stretch in August and September in 2024, and the Blue Jays weren't even playing for that much, but John Schneider would go to a 5-man bullpen. If the game was on the line 3 days in a row, you never saw the other 3 guys. You would only see the 5 guys, and they were winded. They were whipped by the end of the season. So if you can, and the Jays bullpen has gotten deeper in the offseason. They've signed some good arms if they can maintain their health. So if that eighth guy, if that last guy is also your sixth starter, I don't think there's a downside to that.
I guess one thing I would say is so that sixth guy, assuming everything goes well in that rotation, you're losing. You have to pick your spots on that. Where do you use him out of the bullpen, right? How do you deploy him? Because you're going, okay, so you know what game he's going to start. How is he being deployed? Because you're losing that. He's limited on what he can do because he can only pitch certain amount of pitches, say 2 days before the start.
Yeah.
Because, or are you going to go, okay, well, Yariel's the sixth guy, but we need him right now to get some key outs. So, oh, there goes that idea for the sixth
Yeah.
starter. Because traditional 5 starters, when they
No,
moved to it, they weren't in the bullpen.
right.
So, well, we can use him 2 days before, but he can only throw so many pitches. So I guess you're losing some leverage out of your bullpen when Yariel has to be really managed specifically on when he can use those bullpen innings because he's going to
Well,
be needed on X date to start. You know what I
right.
mean?
There's 109 days on the schedule, including 12 off days. So 109 days from March 27th to July 13th, and he's making 8 starts. So your scenario is sort of like fringy in terms of being a real problem because if you give him the 4 days before his start off, because you know his schedule, you know what days he has to work, and then you go to other bullpen members during that time,
Right.
then that works. And you're only talking 8 starts, 32 games, 32 days where he's sidelined out of 109.
Well, sideline for how long? to get
Well,
ready
he
for
gets
that
the 4 days
start.
off ahead of his start.
Right, right. So now I'm playing devil's advocate. So now you're dipping down to that guy who can't pitch major league innings for real. So because you know how it goes. They want full up. They're always making a daily transaction to get another arm in the bullpen to be ready. So, Tommy Nance or worse is going to get some innings somewhere along the line that you would throw Yariel in possibly, but you can't. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yariel's
But
down and Tommy Nance is ready in his place.
but if you look,
How
if
do you
you
feel about those leverage innings and key moments going to somebody? You know
right,
what I mean?
if you look
Else.
at the Blue Jays bullpen, and I said good health is a key factor there. They have
Clearly.
six reliable major league relievers, and some people might scoff and go, "Oh yeah, yeah, sure."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Brendan Little is their one left-hander. So if they re-sign Ryan Yarbrough, which is still there, I mean, the guy's out there. Nobody mentions him. I
Yeah.
think he's
Yeah.
on a retainer almost
Sure.
to come back, and he'd be another guy who could fill that same long relief role that Wyrod would do. So there's your guy in terms of being when Rodriguez is not available to pitch in relief, he's the guy who gets 4+ outs, Yarbrough. And
Right.
to me,
Well,
the depth
maybe.
of the bullpen is the only thing that allows this to happen. And we all know that injuries happen, but you go down to the minors. I'm not sure Zach Pop is. There's room for one pitcher on that roster after if they sign Ryan Yarbrough,
Right.
because you're counting Wyrod as a starter. So he's a sixth starter. That means there's seven relievers. There's six plus one that's not there yet. And whether that's Ryan Bird, Tommy Nance, whoever that is, Zach Pop,
Yeah.
um, that would be the guy. So the scenario you paint of putting a guy in who's not a major league ready pitcher in a game that can be won with this current Blue Jays staff, I don't think that's a factor unless there's injuries.
No, I think it's something that makes a lot of sense. Obviously when you're getting deeper into staffs, you run into guys that probably shouldn't be getting innings anyways. I mean, so
Yeah,
you get an injury or two, and then what happens? Obviously, let's say Bowden Francis shits the bed like bad. So you
which
move
is
Yariel
possible.
into that role.
Yeah,
Who's the sixth guy? You know what I mean? Are you really going to trot Ryan Yarborough into that role? Because that would be a bad idea. Like that's where you get into the idea of and I don't think this is a Blue Jay problem specifically. I think it's a problem all across the game. Like you're getting deeper into staffs to go, if we're going to give 8 starts, which, hey, you got to give them to somebody anyways. But I think your idea is smart because I think at the end of the day, I think it increases the chance of your best arms staying healthy, especially when they're aging like they are with the Blue Jays. And I think it's the best chance for those innings they give you to be better than what they were if they're going on 5 days. I think that's the biggest advantage. I think the back end, you're always going to have to figure out which schlup sometimes is going to get those starts.
yeah,
But
but
this gives your top 4 guys
right.
the
And
best chance.
here's the thing about the graph or the plot of opening day to the All-Star game. It's it's numbers that are in those starts: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if somebody is hurt, say one of the guys goes on the IL,
Yeah.
you can have number five fill in number two because he'll be on full rest, and then maintain that two spot until the injury is done and the other guy Barrios comes back. It won't be Barrios getting hurt, but
Yeah, right.
until that other guy comes back. So to me, there's always at least two options of pitchers ready to go. And so that can cover up like on normal rest, on 4 days rest, which they're all used to doing.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
the
Doing the
best
whole lot.
laid plans, when you lay out this 6 man through 97 games, it looks great. But as you point out, there's always injuries going on. And what do you do then? Well, you just make your five the three, and then you improvise from there. But as long as the outline is there, your number six starter, Wyrod, understands what days he has to be ready to start because you've been around. I mean, like there are so many days during a championship season in the major leagues where who's pitching in this series? Well, we don't know yet.
Oh my God,
You
yeah.
know,
Who's
like why don't we know TBA is more popular?
made more starts than anybody?
Yeah. Anyway, that's it.
I think the
Just
thing I
makes
like
it,
about it, Griff, like
yeah.
you said, this keeps your top pitchers in the best position to succeed. It keeps them healthier, it keeps them fresher, and I think that's the benefit of your plan. You're always going to have this mess down and 5 and 6, like you know what I mean.
Well,
If there's some injuries, and how many starts in a perfect world, how many starts would they lose by not going
well,
on their fifth
I
day?
was going to say the top two guys, Gosman and Barrios, had 19 starts through the All Star break, and I worked it out over 162 game seasons. That comes out to 32 starts for the season. And we all know that Barrios has made 32, exactly 32 starts the last 6 full seasons. And in the COVID shortened 2020 season, his 12 starts in 60 games work out to 32 starts.
Wow.
So 19 starts as in a 6 man rotation, working out to 32. That's exactly what
Yep.
Barrios is
I
wants
I
and is.
truly believe you're ahead of the curve here. As I've said before, baseball will go to a 6 man rotation, just like it went to a 5 man rotation some 30 years, 40 years ago, whatever it was. It just makes so much sense where the game is at. And so I would encourage the Blue Jays to take heed and put your data to use and be one of the first just to get on it. I think it makes a
Well,
lot of sense,
we know the Dodgers have already discussed it because they're going to
right?
have 3 Japanese pitchers once Otani comes back to health and is in the rotation. They're going to have 3 Japanese
It's
pitchers who
once
are
a week.
used to that. Yeah, they're used to that extra rest, and
Yeah.
so they're being shortened to go to a 6 man rotation. Um, but so it is a wave of the future. It's coming, and if the Dodgers do it, then of course there'll be copycats that
Right.
follow up. So why not have the Blue Jays be the one that people are copying?
Agreed. And they don't have a lot of margin for error with this club. So take any edge you can find.
Right. And also this would not have been a scenario before Max Scherzer's signing. But
Well, even more reason.
they got $77.5 million tied up in 4 starters. That's more than 1/3 of the total payroll in 4 guys.
That's
So you got
something.
to protect your investment. And to protect, if it means shorting them 1 start if they're healthy over the full season, it's no big deal because
And I don't think
that's
the guys will mind, put it that way.
numbers, yeah, and the numbers show that they pitch an inning more in their 6th day than they do on their 5th day. So, it works out. I wouldn't have written the column if Scherzer had not been signed because then who is your 6th guy? And,
Right.
and but when you have 4 legit starters, 3 that are making more than 20, no, 2 are making more than 20 million. Um, Barrios is making 18 and he's signed longer term. And Scherzer is going to the Hall of Fame and he's your 4th starter. So protect that investment. Um, give Bowden Francis some breathing room to
Right.
complete the season so you don't use up all his innings by the end of August, just in case you're in a wild card hunt. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, so it does seem to me to
I,
make.
I encourage everyone to go read the column. It's pretty detailed and it makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if they like I said, take your advice. It'll be interesting.
Well, I know that the pitching coach and the manager are considering it, but it doesn't really matter until
The
spring
management.
training unfolds and you see what you got and you run it by players. You'd hate to tell a pitcher that we're going to 6 man
Oh,
without and
for
have
sure.
him read it on griffsatpitch.com,
Yeah. I know they're avid readers, but
Yeah,
so
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Has Gosman replied yet? Posted anything?
Right. The top 5 list. Let's go to a top 5 list. We talk about the Blue Jays infield and we talk about how they're better. And to me, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is across Major League Baseball is undervalued defensively. I mean, he did win a Gold Glove, and you can go, well,
Shouldn't have, but yeah,
he shouldn't
got
have.
good hands.
But he also chases balls down the line and catches them with the best of them in foul territory, that sort of thing, and out
Sure.
into short. And his arm is,
Oh, it's good.
yeah, his
Excellent.
arm is
Excellent.
great on
Yeah.
getting lead runners.
Excellent.
So the right side of the infield is going to be fabulous in terms of supporting a veteran pitching staff that needs as much support as it can get. I mean, I encourage you to put a ball in play if you know that Andres Jimenez is going to make every play and Vlad is going to at least get a glove on a ball. But so the top five list is top five American League infields, in your opinion, in my opinion. So catcher, and then all the way around the infield. We've judged a top five list currently as it stands, and we'll start at number five. You go first, and then I'll just discuss your choice, and then I'll give you my choice.
Okay, I got the Yankees at five.
All right. Yeah.
I,
So you
I
got,
just like it all the way around. You know what I mean? Like for the most part. I mean it's not a top infield, but um, I like the shortstop. You know,
yeah.
I think I
Volpe's,
really
yeah,
do. I do like Volpe. I think you're going to see him, you know, come into his own here.
you have Jazz Chisholm as your second baseman.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. I like that better than having him at third base. So
Yeah.
that
Agreed.
means Goldschmidt at first. I mean, that's a pretty good signing for the Yankees short term.
He fits for them right now, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Wells
And
behind
it
the
is
plate.
short
Wells
term. So
behind the plate, I think, is, you know, pretty decent. So,
yeah. And then LeMahieu at third. That's a question. They've always been trying to replace him.
yeah, so that's why they're five.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
For number five, I've got the Minnesota Twins. Um,
Almost was my fifth. Almost
yeah.
was my fifth.
And like Jeffers, it's hard to say that you're picking somebody because they do well against the Blue Jays because there's so many players that do.
Yeah,
But Jeffers looks great whenever they play the Jays. Not a big Miranda fan at first base. Um, Brooks Lee at second, but Correa and Royce Lewis on the left side of the infield to me is really good. And the catcher, and then with Correa at short, if he can stay healthy, Royce Lewis is one of the great young hitters with a chance if he stays healthy to
right.
be an all-star. Um, so yeah, they made my list at number five.
Yeah, they were just, I had two teams as an honorable mention. They didn't make it. Number four for me is Texas. Um, yeah, Jonah Heim behind the plate, but I just Simeon and Corey Seager obviously carry that a lot of weight in um, that infield for me. I think it can be elite still because you got it. I mean, never mind defensively, but I mean that offensive upside is so big, right? So,
Yeah.
if you go back a year ago, they're probably ranked number one, but
Yeah.
I have them coming in as the fourth best.
Question mark there would be Berger at first base. He's
Yep.
listed there right now, but
And
they must have a
young.
reason. Yeah, Young at third. He's another guy that needs to stay healthy if they're gonna be rated highly. But Berger they must think he's better than was it Nathaniel Lowe?
Yep.
Which Lowe was it? Yeah.
Yeah,
They must think he's better if they kept him over there. My number four is the Blue Jays.
they were my other honorable mention, but they didn't make my top five.
All right. Well, the Blue Jays to me, um, the big question mark that we both have over the last few weeks is the number of games that Alejandro Kirk can catch, that he can start.
Yeah.
I don't think it's triple digits. I don't think he can start
No,
100 games.
no, that's
So,
max. That's max and out.
yeah. But their backup is a question. Their backup catcher or their sharing catcher. And I think it's deceiving to look at Tyler Heineman and see that his catcher's ERA is 2 point something because he caught all of Bowden Francis's last 9 starts, which gives
Right.
him a huge head start on the other catcher in terms of catcher's ERA.
Hey, like Kirk, like people think he's a good defensive catcher. He's not. He's a tremendous framer. There's no doubt about it. And that counts for a lot. But the rest of it is just, he's not a great thrower by any means. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. And the
you know,
other the other weakness that he has is being able to slide out, especially catching on one knee,
right,
blocking balls in the dirt. How often do you see a runner move up from second to third or third to home because he can't slide over quickly enough? Because if a ball is within his body width, he's great at blocking it because he can't get out of the way. You
right,
know, I mean,
right.
he is a wide body. Um,
Oh, no question.
but yeah, so you need another guy who's and the pitch framing that Kirk has, it makes up for a lot of that, and is why a lot of pitchers want to pitch to him because he steals those pitches at the bottom of the zone. I I fear when they go to robo ump.
Well, that's the point. Like he becomes you can't play him unless he's hitting. Like that's going to be an interesting thing because his primary skill is going to be gone. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
So we both agree that Bo Bichette is going to have a rebound year, a bounce back year. And if they're competing and if their infield is that good and helps the starting rotation and the bullpen post better numbers, then they won't trade him at the All-Star break. They won't
Right.
trade Vlad. So this is all dependent on him and Vlad both staying with the team the entire season.
And for me to be a top infield, I think is really dependent on the second baseman actually being somewhat productive with the
Yeah,
bat. You
I'm
know what
big
I
on
mean?
that. I'm big on that. I'm big on that. I think
Right.
the better
And
offensive player and Vlad's a better defensive player than they are both given
and
credit.
let's see. I don't know.
But third base is another. I mean,
But
to me, Will Wagner and Ernie Clement, if they platoon at third in this
yeah,
current roster, might be their best option.
I think it is. I think that's what's happening anyways. I don't see that changing. I think that's your third base platoon. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so that's my number four. Who's your number three?
Kansas City Royals. I mean, it's hard to ignore just the absolute monster production the shortstop gives you as an MVP candidate. You still got Sal Perez back there. Massey's there, Pasquantino, right? Um,
Michael Garcia, but he's injured,
yeah,
so who knows? But
right. You don't know, but I,
that's
I think it's a really underrated infield, and one of the reasons why they're going to be in the mix again. Especially, I mean, actually American League infields. I'm not sure they're compared to National League infields as a whole, but they made my number three spot. I think this carries them to contention. That infield they have.
yeah. My number three, like I really considered the Royals infield. They're not in my top five, but I was wavering on having them five
Yep.
or four because of
Yep.
Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, that guy
Yep.
is an amazing, amazing player, and I love him. But the rest of it is pedestrian to me, and
But it's good enough.
Pasquantino is a good hitter, but I
Yep.
don't know about an all-around player. So I left them off my list, but they were
Yep.
close.
Yep. Good
So
job.
that was your number three. My number three is the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
And I got, it depends. Do you think they're going to sign Bregman? Yeah, I mean, it looks like they might.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
Which
it's
would
going to be a
mean that,
similar bridge deal. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it might even be a longer deal if they
if
if
the
they
Cubs
then
pony up
become
or something.
yeah, if they become intent on clearing some space. So this is as it stands right now. But Yainer Diaz I mean, they won with a guy, Maldonado, behind the plate who couldn't hit a lick.
Yeah,
And Diaz is like a hitter. He's a run producer behind the plate. And
100%.
then they signed Christian Walker because they didn't know what Bregman was whether he was going to resign. Altuve, like I'm
Still
not a
going,
big
baby.
Altuve fan. I'm not a big Altuve fan, especially defensively. Every ball that's hit to him when I'm watching an Astros game, I think he's
Can
gonna.
still hit.
Yeah, he can still hit.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he's wired that way.
yeah. Well done, Griff. Well done.
But if he moves to left field, then that would be Bregman signing and moving to second if they don't trade Paredes.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. But no matter what the configuration of their infield, I got them top five
Yeah.
because of their.
Well, I'll save you further discussion. I had them at two. That's my number two is Houston. So for all those reasons we just discussed. So who's your number two?
My number two is the Rangers. You had them at number four, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got them at number two because of the middle infield
Yeah.
with Simeon and Seager, and I like their catcher. He's from Buffalo,
Yes, he
and
is. Yes, he
and their
is.
third baseman when he's healthy is really good. So I just think the middle infield put them into that top five, and they
That's
got number two position for me.
that's
We
right.
got number one.
I think we both agree on this one. It's the Baltimore Orioles. Um, what a bunch of studs they got, and more. I mean, Jackson Holiday hasn't done anything yet. With Gunner there and Rushman, obviously took a little step back with just overall, I would say. But I expect that to move forward. And I think the piece that people don't understand how good he is this Jordan Westberg. He's kind of the forgotten man there. I'm not sure what, they he gets all his ABs in time. He probably gets traded. It's just there's studs after studs after studs, and I just think they're all improving too. That's the thing. So to me, they're number one. I assume they're your number one as well.
Oh yeah, they're number one. I mean, Rushman, there's a guy who can start as many games as you want to put him behind the plate, and when
Yeah.
he's not starting, he's like South. He uh he is going to DH for you. You
I
know.
don't understand that signing though, Sanchez. I mean,
Yeah,
they couldn't figure McCann out or done something.
I like McCann as a
Yeah,
backup guy. In fact, we've talked about him being signed by the Blue Jays maybe at some point.
right.
As that guy who
Yeah,
can lead a pitching staff, who can sort of contribute some eminence grise to the clubhouse in terms of the catchers meeting. Yeah, so maybe that will happen. But yeah, I can understand that. But Rutschman's a stud. He's going to be there most days. Ryan Mountcastle, I told a story of going to pick up his first home run ball,
yeah.
wandering across the entrance ramp to the freeway in Buffalo. Yeah, hobbling with a hip that
Hobbling.
needed
Yes.
replacement.
Yeah, it was from that triple you legged out, started downhill
That was
spiral.
the start of it. Yeah. Then Jackson Holiday and Gunner and Westbrook. I love Westbrook as a player and a hitter.
So do
Yeah.
I.
Yeah,
So do I.
they're like lengths ahead of the rest of the field in terms
Agreed.
of what they are. And it's going to be difficult for the Blue Jays to match that, you know. I
Oh,
think, yeah,
everybody.
yeah. I
Anybody.
mean, I think they're better than the Yankees.
They are.
Yeah. So
I mean,
it's going to be a tough division, and realistically, if the Jays are going to be competing for anything, it's going to be for a wild card.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see a scenario. I mean, you never say never. There's always a chance. Baseball's a funny game, but I'd say there's a very small chance they're in a AL East division conversation. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Last exercise. So that was an interesting top five exercise. Um, and there's no wrong answers. It's just opinion.
No.
But here's I want you to give a letter ranking to what the Blue Jays have done this offseason. And you can't say, well, they missed on Soto and they missed on Alonso and they missed on Burns. And it's what they've done. And let's
Oh,
read
yeah,
down
yeah,
the
yeah. I don't care who they
yeah.
missed on. I care what they got.
So despite what people say, they've signed two of the top 18 major league trade rumors free agents. So two of the top ranked 18 in Hoffman and Santander. Plus Max Scherzer, who would have been at some point in his career much higher. And Scherzer, we've talked about, pitched 9 games, 9 healthy games in the majors last year, and only 4 at Round Rock at AAA. So
Right.
there's a lot of question marks here in terms of how much he can pitch. But that's
Yeah.
another reason why the 6-man rotation works, because if he has to step aside for a short period of time, you've always got somebody on normal rest to step into that role rather than having to reach down and get that shuttle going to Buffalo because who knows how they're going to shut down the border in terms of migrant
Well,
pitchers.
they better not for my baseball team, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The bus will be cleared
I
out.
got a one-team league now.
Intra-squad game will start at 7 p.m.
Yeah, every night.
All right. So they've done Hoffman and Santander. They signed Scherzer and Jimmy Garcia, and they made two trades with the Guardians. They got Jimenez and Sandlin. I think Sandlin might be an important. We talk about him sort of being that Trevor Richards type guy, sort
Yeah.
of the jack of all trades in the middle of the bullpen. But what we've talked about Miles Straw, but I don't see a spot for him. I think they made their pitch to get
Of course they did.
the international money to sign Roki Sasaki. It didn't work out. Now they're stuck with Straw. I think they'll look for a soft landing spot for Straw so they don't have to carry him on the roster as a redundancy and a reminder of how they screwed that up. And they'll be willing to pay most of that $6 million or whatever it is that they owe, $5 million. So we won't count Miles Straw as an important acquisition here. Angel Angel Bastardo,
Yeah.
a clever Rule
Yeah.
5 pick who's IL'd all season. They might have to pitch him in a game in September just to show
Yeah.
that he's
Yeah.
healthy and they like him.
Yeah.
But those others are the key acquisitions for the Blue Jays heading into 2025. Do you think where do you rank them letter wise? A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, B,
I
whatever.
would say at best, I'll give them a C at best. I don't think they were able to address their needs in any clear way that they needed to heading into the off season. I think they're no better than they were last year. I think right now, and you know, that Scherzer's 40. I mean, maybe. I mean, Santander is the one I like. He's going to add some production that they clearly needed, but they just needed more. They just needed to do more if they were going to contend. I mean, I think the thing when everybody's talking, and that was somebody pointed this out to me, which was very wise. They're talking about the additions, and then they say, well, they lost, who did they lose in the offseason? And nobody ever mentions the loss of IKF, the loss of Jansen, the loss of Turner, the loss of Kikuchi, the loss of Kiermaier, if you want, because they were already gone. But
Romano.
those players were major part of the 74 win team. So that's a lot of production that isn't there. IKF was great for the Jays last year. You know what I mean? Kikuchi was great. And there was production from Turner. Horwitz is gone. A lot of production Horwitz gave you at the end is gone. And when people say, well, they only lost Horwitz because they already consider those guys traded at the deadline is gone, but they were a major contributor to what did. So when you're
Romano
going into
too.
the season,
Romano they lost. So that
Romano,
yeah.
yeah. So when you're going into the season, you've added these guys, but it's not from the team. There were holes you created that you needed to replace that you didn't. So I'd give them a C. There's work to be done, and I don't think they're going to really be able to do it at this point. They're going to have to, hopefully, guys go get better. Hopefully, Bichette gives you a big year. Hopefully, Vlad just keeps the train going. Wagner hits, those and Santander and Scherzer gives you something. There is a path. I mean, things didn't, as you talked about with the bullpen, a lot of bad luck there last year too. You know what I mean? Like the bullpen coming into the year looked pretty okay,
Yeah,
and it
no,
was,
it looked deep enough to handle 4 straight wins with different guys,
and it was the worst bullpen in baseball. So
Yeah.
you can expect some positive regression there. So I think there's a path for them to compete, to stay in that periphery, can do something from there, right? and then let's see what you do. But I'd say C. I just think they're relatively the same as far as production as they were last year. How do you feel?
I would give them a B actually,
Yep,
because I
I
do
figured
believe
you would.
that they were hovering around and threatening the 500 mark, not to compete for a wild card or anything like that, but until they got rid of a bunch of
Yeah.
players, um, they gave up. They threw their hands in the air, and there's no tanking in baseball, but this was as close as possible because the
Well, it made
bullpen
sense.
was
It made
bullpen was
sense to
awful.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bullpen in the second half in the last 2 months was awful. The numbers aren't there to signify how bad it was,
Yeah.
but when the manager says the bullpen might have cost us 10 games, to me, they've rectified that. And of all the additions, I would say deepening the bullpen, is more important than Scherzer, is more important. Santander and deepening the bullpen to me were the key
Yeah. It's just
movements.
so hard to predict a
And
bullpen.
like without Andres Jimenez at second base, you would have had players who could produce offensively. You would have had Horwitz, you would have had
Wagner.
Wagner, you would have had offensive production. But to me, the big thing about him is I believe he can hit, and I also know he can field and save
Well,
that
we know that.
pitching staff. He can save that pitching staff, pitches, hits,
Mhm.
runs. And so I give him a B. You give him a C.
Yeah.
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 So I mean, it would have been A minus or A if they had signed any of their top pursuits.
And see, I can't get to B without Vladdy either. You know what I mean? Like we've
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
about. It's
yeah.
just
Okay, I'm gonna go to B minus because they didn't extend Vladdy. B minus.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I'm C minus now. On
That
second
that
thought.
would have been a huge, huge deal, and they would have
But
been
it's
able
still not done.
they would have been able to sign Santander earlier in the offseason. They might have had to pay him more, so maybe it worked out for them. But yeah, I'll go to B minus because of that. Thank you.
Straightened you out.
You're
No
a tough
problem.
you're a tough marker.
Yeah, that's right. I am. That's right.
Anyway, that about does it for this edition of Exit Philosophy, and we will be back first day of spring training. I'm not sure whether it's just reporting or first day on the field next.
Wow, that is, eh? Next
Yeah,
first day
yeah,
next week.
yeah.
Woohoo.
That's crazy. So
That's
we'll talk
exciting.
about spring training. We'll talk about
Yeah.
stand. Maybe they will have added a couple more guys, and I'll get rid of my minus. I'll be up to B.
Yeah, I'll be up to C plus maybe. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. There's still
Anyway,
time.
Um, Exit Philosophy, you can get past episodes on griffthepitch.com, as well as my column on the 6-man rotation and columns back for the last 2 years. So it's worth the look if you're a real baseball fan. And appreciate it, Mal. And good luck with your press conferences and your organizing and rounding up
Thank
more
you.
players for your team. And we'll continue to talk about that as time goes on, and we'll see where you stand. And maybe you can have me out to throw the first pitch at some point. So,
Have the pinch run, maybe.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can guarantee you you'll still bring a Bud Light can out, whatever you do. So
Flap down, flap down without trying.
lapped, right. We'll look forward to it.
All right, man. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for listening, and thanks Mel for co-hosting.
No
And
problem.
we'll talk to you next week.